Good morning. Today I am going to discuss a new topic which is about the oligopoly. And we had already discussed different market forms, including perfect competition, monopoly, or monopolistic competition, oligopoly. And today is actually a special case of the oligopoly, which is what we call normally duopoly model. And this duopoly model is very famous, and in fact, many of the economic propositions and theoretical understandings are in fact made or laid based on this foundation of duopoly, and therefore the learning or discussing of duopoly is very important. So this is what is actually I feel about duopoly in the very outset. So let me come to the lecture. So there are so many, basically the definition, we know that only two firms exist or two sellers exist in the market, and of course it is not a monopoly. That is why it is not a monopoly. So two firms exist, and issues of entry is not considered at all. Then you have also the point under the two firm case, that is monopoly could be special or limiting case of this particular oligopoly. That is what is we need to really understand, or to begin with, this is actually the setting which normally any theorization basically starts with. So profit maximization in that sense is also part of the formulation, which is very important, and that is two firms should be there, profit maximization should be there as the guiding principle. Then the possibility of quantities or price model, that is either you can when you speak about a duopoly, or the sellers who has in fact, or if more than one seller, if they do have, they basically either a control of price or they do have control on quantity. So this is very important, and quantity model also there. Then corresponding to that, you have a price model also. So there is nothing with the model to determine which weapon is being used in that sense or will be used. So it is determined a priori in that sense. Okay, so that means it is not being followed. A priori, the model, whether it's a quantity model or it is a price model, will be settled. So that is why the whole premise is being set a priori, and highlights artificiality of the approach in that sense, to make a very realizable or realistic kind of model. What you do is basically you assume two firms, or what you normally do, the duopoly modeling. Okay, so based on that only you basically interact in the market. If monopoly, in fact, as seller's point of view, there is no interaction. Actually, there is an only interaction between the buyers and sellers. There is no actually a kind of communication or sort of competition, or what all kinds of economic activities is in fact missing under a monopoly. So this is the difference. So any theory, any perfectly competitive theory, or any market theory per se, is in fact starts with this duopoly model. So it has wide range of implications as well as applications in the real world. So most of the theoretical formulation is basically based on this. And the last but not the least case is actually the simple market situation, which I just now talked about. That is, there is known demand curve, and you have a single homogeneous product in that sense. So if that is all set, then if this is a kind of objective condition being set, then what you do normally is actually the reaction response towards that particular understanding. All right, so we deal with the competition among the few, and each actors has to take into account what others do in that sense, and the simple way to do is the reaction function in that sense. Very simple formulation, and based on the idea of best response, we can extend this idea. And in the case of where more than one possible reaction to a particular action, is also permissible, and it is then known as the reaction correspondence. Then if you have actually more than one reaction, then you have a reaction correspondence. So this is what is actually the model is altogether, or the response practice basically been figured out. Okay, so we will see how this works, and with modeling as well as mathematical as well as the graphical presentation will be giving you a clear idea regarding this. So where reaction is in terms of price, where reaction in terms of quantity, etc., will be discussed very soon. So now once let's start one by one. First, we will be discussing about the price case. Okay, so the simplest ever model is actually a price model, and there is a market for a single homogeneous good. Firm announces prices, and excuse me, each firm does not know the other announcement when making its own. So this is actually there is no interdependency per se in this case, because they don't have actually information which they are sharing. All right, so what is actually in this particular model is going to do is actually you have two sellers maybe, but that two sellers reveals their price, or basically they announces their price separately, and they may not be knowing each other. The moment they get to know, then there is all possible collusion and other stuff will take place. So that is why precisely this particular model is basically emphasizes this on this fact. So total output is determined therefore by demand, and a determinate market demand curve in that sense, and that is what is called the firm's known firm's demand curve. All right, and the division of output amongst the firm determines by the market rules, and take a special case with a clear cut solution in that context. So now you have a variety of models which was very much popular, and of course being taught in different curricula, part of different curricula, MA, BA, MA, and even for research programs we used to teach this kind of modeling, because it is very very important as far as the particular kind of its, or this typical kind of its modeling premise concerned. So now let us go to the details of Bertrand model in that sense. Okay, so but as we said, it's kind of a price model, and two firms can potentially supply the market, and each firm zero fixed cost, constant marginal. So you have first point is zero fixed, there is no fixed cost involved. So therefore once you don't have a fixed cost, then you don't have a parabolic average cost in that sense. Sorry, in the average total cost or a fixed cost context. So now what is actually, because you don't have a fixed cost per se, and the constant marginal cost is another thing. That means if that is the case, again it is quite interesting. So once you have a marginal cost which is constant, that is, then the difference of the difference is going to be zero. Therefore it would be a horizontal line of kind in that sense. Okay, so if one firm alone supply the market, it charges monopoly price, that is PM. So even if you have a lower marginal cost or a constant marginal cost, doesn't matter. What you basically charge is the monopoly price in this context. No, so monopoly price is always greater than the other price, which means generally speaks. Now the outcome of this announcement is the following: like you have a P1 which is less than P2. Firms one capture the whole market in that sense. So suppose if you have a P1 which is greater than P2, then second firm capture the whole market, and P1 is equal to P2, then firm equal amounts to the market in that sense. So what will be the equilibrium? That is the question which immediately arises out of it. So consider firm 1's response to firm 2. If firm 2 foolishly sets a price P2 above PM, for example, and then now if you have a monopoly price which is the highest price, now Once you have a monopoly price, which cannot no price cannot be greater than the monopoly price. All right. Now, if some firm is basically charge a price which is very higher price than even the monopoly price, then it sells zero output in that sense, because nobody is going to buy things, and there are so many other stuff in that sense. So market interaction will hardly take place in that. So for firm, one can safely set monopoly price. So if that is the case, then another firm can actually set their price, and they can enter in the market or capture the entire market. Now, in this case, it is quite clear that the cost, the price of the first firm is basically greater than the second firm. Then naturally the second firm will be taking over the entire market in that sense. So if firm 2 sets P2 above but less than or equal to PM, then firm 1 can undercut and capture the market. Firm first set P1 is equal to P2, which is minus delta, where delta is greater than 0. So for one's profit always increases if delta is made smaller. So, but to capture the market, the discount delta would must be positive. So, strictly speaking, what is the best response is actually the first firm's response in this regard of this particular formulation. Now, if firm 2 sets the price equal to C, then firm 1 cannot undercut firm 1 also sets price equal to C, because they cannot undercut the other firm's price in that sense. So if firm 2 sets a price below C, it would basically make a loss. Firm 1 would be crazy to match this price if firm 1 sets P1 is equal to C. At least it won't make a loss, which is counterintuitive in that sense. So let's look at the diagram if that is the case. Okay. So this is what is actually the diagram is all about. It's a very simple diagram. Now you have a CC price as well as you have a P2 price and P1 corresponding price. So of course you will also have a PM price. Now look at the PM price. PM price may be coming with a sort of a quantity, right? Now both the firm has the same price, then definitely the share is being split. That is the horizontal line, which is you know demarcated. That is the blue line that from the point B and upward, which is what is called the equal kind of situation in that sense. Suppose some firm increases a higher price, then naturally they will be falling down towards the other, because the other person completely takes the market away with him. Now, if you have actually a smaller price, as we noted in that sense, then what happens is that the other firm, even if he or she charge a very high monopoly price, but still they can actually sell the commodity in that sense. So, marginal cost for each firm, monopoly price level, one firm's reaction function, two reaction function, and Bertrand equilibrium is what has actually been given. So in that sense, you may be having possible PM interaction, like using a natural tool, that is minus prices yield a remarkable conclusion, mimics the outcome of perfect competition. Price which is equal to MC, these are actually called the benefit or the advantage of this particular model, but it is based on a special case, that is neglect some important practical features, fixed cost, product diversity, capacity constraint, and etc. These are actually being imposed as a heavy assumption in this particular model. But still, when if you look into the modern economic theorization, this seems not so greatly heavily burdened with the theoretical model building. So I think it's okay, pretty much nicer than even any newer kind of a situation in which we do have actually different kinds of pricing, different kinds of theorization based on different proposition in that sense. Very strict and unrealistic proposition. But if that is the case, and if you compare that with this Bertrand model, it is not that greatly been burdened in that. So outcome price competition model usually sensitive to the following problem, like you know the criticism which we labeled against. But at the same time, when you talk about a quantity model, things would be little different. That is, now the output quantity as the firm's choice variable is being fixed, and the price is determined by the market once total quantity is known. An auctioneer, maybe perhaps that idea maybe remains, because it is during that period this theory was formulated in that sense. So three important possibilities. First one is collusion, where your competition is an illusion monopoly by another main but a useful reference point for other firms. Now the second one is a simultaneous move competing in quantities, and the third one is leader follower competing in quantity. So these are actually the three different set of responses which you can find given the particular understanding. So let's look into one by one. Collusion, basically basic setup. So two firms are agreed. So as we began, that is, two firms agreed to maximize joint firm. Then what is actually, there is a collusion between this thing. So earlier, by the very assumption, we said that they announce separately their prices or even their quantity in that sense. But here, what we say is actually there is a possibility of a collusion, even if this is two different firms. So because they are in the same market, okay, and they produce in the same produce the same commodity. In that sense, this is a little bit tougher to say that they don't know each other or the price of their product in that sense. Okay, so the announced price would be known by the other immediately. That is why we said that the possibility of getting it mimicked is very high in this particular context. So what they can make by acting as though they were a single firm, essentially a monopoly with the two plants in that sense. This is what is called the results of a duopoly get colluded. So they also agreed on a rule for dividing the profit could be, but need not be, equal shares in that sense. So in principle, these two issues are separate. And to show what is possible for the firm, draw the profit frontier and show the possible combination of profit for the two firms. So each, given the demand condition, given the cost function, distinguishes two cases where cash transfer between the firms are not possible, where cash transfer are possible. So these are two separate cases in which we are going to discuss the setting of the Bertrand model. Frontier, that is non-transferable profit in that context. So look at this particular case. You have a profit line, and as we said, if you have different prices is there, then you can say that what is your abnormal profit. For example, if you have a CC case, we have already seen, at the same time you have a PM price or greater than PM price. So either the way you have a fixed profitability, at least in the duopoly case. Now, if that is the case, then a side payment means profit can be transferred between firms, and cash transfer convexity, the set of attainable profits, etc. So this is actually going to be exhaust the whole idea of Bertrand's duopoly in that sense. So take the special case of the linear model where marginal costs are identical. Will both the firm produce a positive output is a question, and indeed let's look into that. What are the answers which we have? If unlimited output is possible, then only one firm need to incur the fixed cost in that sense. Now, in other words, the true monopoly, that is, there is also a possibility of a free riding in that sense. Okay, but if there are capacity constraints, then both firms may need to be produced, and both firms incur a fixed cost in that sense. So this is also from the criticism which we have earlier posted. That is, we examine both a case, that is capacity constraint first, and the other things will be followed. Now, if that is the case, then as I said, we have a modeling, and if that is the firm is active, total profit is, then you have this equation, that is, you both are trying to maximize your profitability, and therefore your function would be the following, like, now with no capacity limit and constant marginal utility, you have no reason for both firms to be active in that context. So no another other other need to incur one lot of a fixed cost Z0 is the smaller of the two firms fixed cost in that sense. So previous analysis only needs slight tweaking, or you can simply change the preposition, then you will get different models and modified formula for PJ by replacing C0 with 1 by 2 1 by 2 CO or Z0 price, but is the division of the profit still implementable in that context? So now with this, let me stop the Bertrand model, which is a very simple model, a price reaction as well as a quantity reaction model. In that, both models are existing. So there are many discussions regarding that. So let me conclude this small short lecture. Okay, thank you for watching and listening my video.